Yeah, I believe in you. Don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Yes, yes, we believe in happiness. Absolutely. And welcome to the show. This is the news segment. We have Financial Report with J.C. Schweingrouber, and he works with Vista Partners. So Vista Partners provides investment portfolio management for investors from all walks of life. Whether you're a high net worth investor with sophisticated needs or an investor just beginning your journey, visit them at www.vistafrontpartners.com. That's VISTAFRONTPARTNERS.com. And without any further ado, Mr. J.C. Schweingrouber, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So this market this past week, let's talk about it.
Well, we've had the Dow has had like 5 straight down weeks. This week, volatility still, but thankfully to the upside. Mm-hmm. So we had a pretty good week. The market did rebound a good bit from some of its earlier just beatings that we've been taking this spring. And, like we've talked about on previous shows, it has a lot to do with the inflation. It has a lot to do with the supply chain, everything going on over in Ukraine. And then, with the inflation numbers and the high energy prices right now, you just see a general slowdown and malaise. And you hear people talking about, well, we haven't seen it like this bad since the late 70s, early 80s. And then that just gets in people's psyche,
Right.
But thankfully, we have seen this week a good turnaround. Now, whether that lasts for a while, we'll see. But we did have some interesting news come out this week. Well, the biggest news was the Federal Reserve, after voting to raise a quarter point, actually raised the rates this week, which we all knew was coming. So a lot of people were like, oh, no, here we go, the higher interest rates. But you have to bring inflation down somehow, and this is how you do it. So it's not a scary thing. It's needed. And we've been at 0% rates forever.
Yeah.
Or a better part of 15 years. So it's about time we kind of get to some normalcy, but we'll see how the economy does with it. But another thing that I keep an eye on, other than the inflation numbers that came out, which just reconfirmed what we were looking at, but there's a thing called the Consumer Sentiment Index that came. And that particular index, when it came out, it was at 59.7. Now, you're like, well, what does that mean, right? It's a poll that goes out by the University of Michigan, and they ask people what are they feeling positive about the economy going forward. Now, just because the sentiment index fell, because prior it was at 62.8, the last reading of it, so it fell. But with gas prices up higher, it's to be expected. But just because it falls doesn't mean the economy is going to do bad or people are going to stop spending. Because that number was really low during the pandemic. Yeah, kept spending a lot. They built up surplus savings and spent through the whole pandemic. But it's just a matter of time, I think, Elizabeth, before we see the fuel prices catching up on consumers and the wallet. Because at this rate, they've estimated, this is kind of a weird, scary number, but think about $1,000 in annual expenses coming out that you didn't anticipate. Right. That's what gas prices are doing to people this year. It's going to cost the average family $1,000 in annual additional expenses just for fuel. So,
and there's so many families out there where, what did we mention last week? 60-70% of families, somewhere in between there, are paycheck to paycheck. And when you're paycheck to paycheck, if you don't have that $1,000, you don't have,
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you think that's going to do to travel as far as how it trades and how it keeps its value in the travel sector.
Well, at some point, fuel prices will have to come back down because people aren't going to travel as much.
Right.
And so, they won't produce as much. But at some point it'll eventually, I think, come back down. As long as people keep spending, like I said, that consumer sentiment can drop. That doesn't mean people are going to stop spending. But, at this rate, it's inevitable at some point. If we see some things change on the world front, like the Ukraine crisis gets settled before too long, or, we actually start drilling here, opening up our pipelines, we can alleviate some of this. One of the problems is we rely on, we can pump all the oil we want, but you have to refine that to get the gas, to make gas.
Right.
And we have run our refineries at a maximum capacity that we have here, but a lot of it's refined elsewhere. But we have not built a refinery in close to 50 years in this country. And there's just so much regulation on it that we haven't made it feasible, which I think is really, really sad. If we would actually make the investment to build a couple of more refineries in our nation, we could bring gas prices down fairly low and still allow the oil companies to maintain a level of profitability that they have to maintain to operate. But will that ever happen? I don't know. We'll see in the coming years, but I know as bad as everybody wants to get off fossil fuels and move on to the more green energy, you have to let technology catch up. It will happen, but it has to happen and be affordable, because you can't tell families living paycheck to paycheck, like you said, it's at 64% of those families, to go out and buy an electronic vehicle, and then you don't have enough charging stations in the country anyway right now to do that for people to travel. So it's kind of a catch-22, and it'll eventually all work itself out. It's just we have to catch up with, is it feasible economically, and can families afford to do this? And it'll catch up.
So, I was watching a couple of news broadcasts over the past week, and they were mentioning how the changes that we've seen in the past now 3 weeks, and so we've only been 7 days in of not purchasing Russian oil, correct? That those prices that we're seeing at the pump, they don't really hold hands with what's going on. And I was just doing a quick search here. So, for instance, this past week, Exxon, their stock is up by 1.49%. Marathon Oil Corp is up by 4.4%. Can you connect that for me? As someone that, I really don't know a ton about this financial world that you're in, but why would we see stocks doing well on companies, now then again, you have others that are taking a loss. So why are some doing well and the others aren't? And is it just price gouging?
No, because it's not price gouging at this point, because all these gas stations they're owned locally by local people, right? So one of my neighbors may own the Exxon at the corner. Now, is it price gouging on the price of a candy bar going out of there, or a soda? Yeah, probably. But it's a convenience store, right? So everything's high priced. Gas, they actually have to schedule those deliveries in advance. So when the price of oil spikes up, they know the price of gas is going to go up. So they don't know where the price of gas is going to be in a month. So they may have to go ahead and buy that supply now, maybe afraid that it's going to go up even higher, and bid that in. And that's sort of what they have to price that at the pump. That's why at one place on the same street, like I may see $4.19 at my Exxon, and I may see $4.25 at the one down the street. It's just a difference in when they bid, because there's only so much, because there's so many people that think it's price gouging. They're always reporting, so we're always on the lookout, regulators. And if somebody's price gouging, they're going to get in trouble. And but a lot of these local owners are not price gouging. They're just having to bid out because they don't know where oil is going to go. Now, of course, oil dropped back down in value, the West Texas Intermediate. And then there's Brent crude. So there's two different types of oils that you see the quotes on during the course of the day where they go. And they're used for different types of things. But, we have to remember that oil is not just used in gasoline, but oil is a huge commodity, because everything, even from my bottled water,
Sure.
It takes petroleum to make these products that I drink out of, and anything and everything we use. So a lot of people are looking at kind of what I said long term. We're not going to get to green energy overnight.
No.
So we have to go back to more traditional fossil fuel drillers and fossil fuel companies. So you're seeing more people put investment back in that. That's why the stock is going up. It's not because their profits are soaring. It's just the stock is in higher demand for long-term investors.
Thank you so much for that explanation. That is such a more solid explanation than what was out there on mainstream media this past week.
Yeah.
And the other stock that actually rose quite a bit, I mean, to the tune of 38%, was Redbox. So do you think that within the entertainment sector of entertainment in the light of, things like Redbox, the Netflix, all those things that you can do from home will be on the rise in that sector as we go into the summer with, high gas prices, which I don't foresee, and I'm not an expert in the market, but I don't foresee it coming down as quickly as it's risen.
Yeah, prices are sticky. Like, you can raise prices faster than you can lower them because you have to bid out the future. So if somebody, for example, at a gas station bid out 3 different contracts and they bid it all 3 at a higher rate than where oil is, at say 102, well, they're stuck with that price. So if they want to compete with the guy up the street, they still have to price at whatever they're pricing to get people to come and pump gas, but their profit margin is lower because they pay a little higher. See, so it's but yeah, I think what you mentioned with those, I think people are getting a little bit more selective with what products they want to, like Netflix, for example. I love Netflix, but am I getting $15 and something a month value out of it? Well, it depends on how many movies I watch. And I look at it this way: if I watch at least 3 movies or 2 movies a month on Netflix, it costs me more than that to go to the movie theater and watch something. So is it a good value? Probably. And I'm not paying $5 for a small popcorn.
Right.
So is it worth it? Yeah. Things like Disney Plus, people are going to continue to subscribe to those. But you have so many other streaming services coming on. There's a lot of competition right now. And I think we're going to see some shakeout. I know there has been now, I'm going to name a company, and so I'm not giving this as advice to buy this company. Do your own homework or talk to your advisor. But one of the companies right now, a lot of big money is going into, like, I was reading an article about like the Ackmans and Buffetts of the world are putting money into Comcast. Now, that tells you that they have a value on those types of services. There's a lot of other companies that are out there that do streaming services at a much cheaper rate, and other cable companies. And because I think Xfinity is owned by Comcast, so that's kind of a subsidiary. So there's so much out there, but who knows where the prices are going to go? But as long as that demand is still out there, and you're not going to spend $5 a gallon of gas to go somewhere, where are you spending it? I mean, assuming inflation doesn't bite in and make everybody cut everything.
Now, on the worldwide front, international front, obviously there's a war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. There's a lot of talk about other parts of the world doing some interesting moves that could lead into similar situations in their neck of the woods. Do you feel like what we've seen in the market, with it being rocky, obviously, before the war broke out, but still, do you see that rockiness, that unsteadiness to continue, to escalate, or to eventually decrease if things stay the way they are? And albeit it's deplorable and it's heartbreaking to see what's happening, how do you think in 3 weeks from now, where do you think we will be?
Yeah, it's always hard to predict, like, where you think the market's going to go in the short term. If you take a look at a long-term chart, the market has consistently gone up over years. And then you have those blips where they go down. Like you mentioned other parts of the world. That's one of my big concerns, is China going to make a move on Taiwan.
Yeah.
Now that would throw a big wrench into the system. And we would see a huge spike probably in volatility on something like that, because not only putting troops into Poland right now to back our NATO partners in case Russia does something dumb like invade another country.
Yeah.
That's a NATO partner that we're sworn to. We have an agreement to defend. But we have so much going on in Taiwan because that's Silicon Valley West. We have all our semiconductors over there, the industry that we buy, or the vast majority of it, 90%. And they're slowly moving some of that back here to the States. To me, it's a national security issue. And should have been done years ago. But, with having such a reliance on Taiwan, if they were to be attacked or that would happen, they would probably knock out those facilities first. And then there goes everything we need to do to put those chips in our military equipment, our cars, our computers, our phones. It would be a huge, huge thing. So, but they have to weigh the consequences of what would happen to them as well. Because right now, Russians are kind of living like their cell phone companies are leaving. The Netflix is leaving. All their streaming services are leaving. McDonald's is closing down. It's like now they're running out of things to even do or places to go because of what's Western companies pulling. Where's it going to be in 2 weeks? I don't know, but I do know that the more volatile we are, we'll eventually get over all of this, and the more volatile that it is, keep your shopping list handy, because if you find good companies with good revenue, this is not the time to buy companies that don't make money.
Mm-hmm.
But find those companies, and like that old saying, good investing is like good fishing. Sometimes you just have to shut up and wait, and buy those things and stomach it, and you're going to come out well in the long run.
So okay. So I have probably a very naive green question for you. So entering into your guidance. And let's say we've invested in a particular sector and something in the world changes and it directly affects that sector. What do you do?
Depends on what kind of company you bought, If it's a company that you're buying, not for just like a short-term trade. Now, if it's something you're just trading stocks, like a day trader, you have a certain set amount, like, okay, I'm willing to take a 10% loss out, then I'm going to go find a new game to play. If you're a long-term investor, which that, again, another old saying, if the company's not worth holding for 10 years, you probably shouldn't hold it for 10 minutes. Then I'm not going to worry about short-term things that affect that particular sector. I'm going to keep enough cash on hand that if that company goes down 50%, and I really still like that company has long-term, has had a long-term success. Like, for example, I'm just going to throw a name out like Walmart. It's not going anywhere, but if something happened where we stopped trade with China, if you know how much Chinese goods are on Walmart shelves, Walmart's going to find other supplier. Now, will it be hurt in the short term if something like that happened? Probably. You might see the stock cut in half. Who knows? Who knows where that will go? But I don't think Walmart's going anywhere. And if I'm a long-term hold on Walmart, then I'm going to take an opportunity to buy Walmart at a very cheap price.
Right.
And hold. So it depends on your mindset and what, how aggressive you want to be with your money.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned Walmart, a little bit unrelated, but that stock, I actually had some family members say that they were kind of watching it a little bit because of what's been in the news cycle this past week. So if anybody's missed it, there were some big warehouse fires and multiple of them.
Yes.
Do you think that's more of a conspiracy theory of, well, oh my gosh, Walmart's being targeted and now all their warehouses are burning down? This is like a terroristic thing.
No, everybody got out of there. So I haven't heard anything of whether they thought it was foul play or.
Good.
I mean, when you have these big facilities like that, I mean, even a spark from a plug in the wall could, if it hits some toilet paper they have stocked up, you never know where these things can go. But yeah, that was terrible. When I saw how big that facility was, this was outside of Indianapolis, I think.
Yes, there were actually two of them. So let's see, I'm looking at it now. Plainfield Walmart and Indianapolis Walmart. So Yeah, it looks like 1 day ago and 13 hours ago. I don't believe it's the same one, but perhaps it is. But it was a massive factory, massive warehouse.
Yeah, I think they had over 1,000 people that worked there
Right.
at that time. So everybody got out from what I heard. So thankfully for that.
Right.
No, I haven't heard of anything that where it's conspiratorial. And again, this is not a recommendation to buy Walmart per se. Talk to your
Right.
home, but it was trading. It didn't really bounce around much. Around 145 a share. So I mean, it even went up a little bit on Friday.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was good. So nerves. Let's talk about nerves and investing. And I know you've mentioned it before, but take me back to that beginner stage. What are the things that I need to know? We talk a lot about stocks and what to invest in, but what if my knowledge base is less than that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had one of your viewers actually bring that up to me this week. Like,
Really?
yeah, I'm novice. What? Just flat out ask, all right, what are things I can invest in? Because they hear companies mentioned, and we talk a little bit about sectors, but so I wanted to maybe let's kind of jump back and do just like a basic 101.
Okay.
So a novice investor, you haven't invested in anything. You may have a 401k or 403b. Maybe not sure how that works, but you're putting money back. And one of the things that I think that's been glaring to me before I kind of get into like a specific, how you can invest overall, just in generic terms, is I really wish that when I was in high school, they had some sort of a finance class that taught me the things that it took me years to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I would have learned those things when I was 16 and actually applied them,
Mm-hmm.
I could retire at 50 incredibly comfortably. So when I mention this stuff to my nieces and nephews and they roll their eyes, I'm like, listen, I'm telling you, like, you got to do this. But, whether they do or not, it's up to them. But I wish, high schools and colleges, at least first year, would teach us basic finance about that and debt management and credit cards. Oh, that's another thing to keep in mind. Fed's raising rates. Rates are going up. One of the first, if you have debt, focus on getting rid of some of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of your overall strategy of doing well in the long term. But so before I forget that, but the field of investing, it's a really large one. Okay, there's an infinite number of things you can learn about investing, and I've been doing this for years, and I learn something new every week. And if you're not learning something new, you're just kind of not paying attention. And that's one of the things I love about this field. Like Saturday mornings, I'll get up and I'll spend an hour or two just doing research on individual stocks, looking for opportunities. And everybody's like, oh, he's working on a Saturday. It doesn't feel like work. It never felt like work because I just, enjoy what I do. But the most successful investors are going to tell people especially if you're 16 or 18 out there and you're in college and you're watching, it doesn't matter what age really. There's so many things to learn, continually learn and expand your skills at what you understand about making money and being comfortable in life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can't learn everything there is to know in a week. Or in a day or anything like that. It takes a long time to learn these things, but you can learn very basic things that'll help. And, so you have to have a certain sense of optimism. So that's one thing I want to tell people when you get involved in investing, be optimistic, expect to be successful. Don't expect to be flawless because even the best of us will make a mistake and buy a stock that'll stink from time to time. It happens. It happens to everybody. Happens to what's that guy's name on CNBC? Jim Cramer. I don't know how many investment choices he's tossed out there, and it's down 10% the next week. Okay. So it happens to everybody. But there's a couple of truths that I'd like to just kind of point out to people and if you're taking notes, I'm going to get into some basic stuff here in just a second. But there's a couple of really important truths I want to stress. One that is the fact that taking the time to acquire even a very basic knowledge of investing, whether you're 15 or 50, okay, it's going to put you well ahead of your peers in terms of just understanding what's going on. Doesn't matter what age. If you take the time to learn a little bit of it, a little at a time, you're going to be better off than most people in terms of financial success if you apply those principles. And the second thing It's something I'd heard this old. He was really old too, but he was one of the wealthiest commodity futures traders, and I can't remember the guy's name.
Oh, did we lose audio? Oh, we lost audio. Hold on, Cyrus. Okay, so just a moment. So I'm going to type in wealthiest. Oh, here he is. He's back. You're back.
I'm sorry, I had a call coming in. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
I guess it froze it. But but what I was saying is one of those wealthy commodities traders, he said that you can make a lot more money faster by sending your money to work for you every day instead of you going to work every day for your money. Now, by that, one of the things I think of is like investing, and this is kind of like 101. You're in the construction business, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's like building a house. I heard this analogy when I first got in the business, but I always liken it to building a house or making dinner, like dinner plans for the week. Okay. Every day you plan out your meals. You got to diversify. The first thing you want to do when you're building your home is you want to have a solid foundation, a really solid foundation, something that you know that, earthquake or floods, you got something you can stand on there that you're comfortable on.
Mm-hmm.
And I liken that to investments that are companies where it's a mutual fund or individual stocks, individual companies that have solid cash flow. They make money. They make something people need, not a service, but products that people need. And there's all kinds of things out there, and that you can consider that people need. It's not just food products. It's things literally that make the concrete, the oil, the gas, and so all those types of things that are money makers that you could put money in that may pay dividends. A lot of them will. Just reinvest those dividends. It's like compounding interest in your savings account. Mm-hmm. You reinvest those dividends, and that just grows exponentially over time. So that's kind of the first thing to consider when you're building your home. And then as you build the rest of it, you add other things you need. You might want some biotechnology companies over here, something that you might want some other food companies over here, some restaurants, some McDonald's and Walmarts over here. As far as your roof on your house, you want to make it leak proof. So maybe that's where you start looking at things like bonds that you're going to get your money back on, and a little bit of interest. And that's security over top, So that's why, I can, it's kind of, I know, silly way of explaining it, but you can liken those companies that you need to building your house, of how to build a solid portfolio and a diversified portfolio. And I'll get into that topic maybe on another episode, diversification, because for those of you out there watching, if you have a portfolio, you have an advisor, and they put you in just a bunch of mutual funds and they call that diversification, no, they're not. That is not real diversification. I will explain what diversification is a little bit more, because that's such an important concept to investing. But when she asked, like, what can I invest in? And we've talked about mutual funds, and we've talked about stocks and the difference. Mm-hmm. And last week we talked about ETFs. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about so many concepts on here. Why women to invest a little differently than men. Yeah. I had that conversation earlier today with someone else. Mm-hmm. And I want to give you some like asset classes that you can invest in, and you can just jot these down. And then you can like break them down into subgenres too, and that's a little bit more 102, investing 102. We'll stick with 101. The first thing you can do that you can invest in are equities or stocks. They're the same thing. When you hear equities, think stocks, and those are just shares of ownership in companies. If you go out to Chipotle every day and you enjoy lunch there, maybe you buy shares of Chipotle, or you drink Dr. Pepper all the time. You can buy shares in these companies, and those are shares of ownership. That is literally all that is. I know this sounds so basic, so if I'm boring anybody, but a lot of people really need to to understand that that's what that is. That is a share of ownership. So some years your company will make more money than it does in other years, right? So same thing with these companies. Sometimes that stock will go up. Sometimes it will go down. What you want to focus on is, am I buying this at a fair price? And why am I buying it? All right. So it's a simple question But why? If I give business to something every day, then yeah, why not own a little bit of it? Paying myself, if they pay a dividend every time I shop there and they're profitable, I guess I get a little bit of that back in my pocket every quarter.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can invest in, fixed income investments, or bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And bond, believe it or not, as big as the stock market is, the bond market, which is nothing but buying debt, somebody else's debt, is 10 times bigger than the stock market. Did you realize that?
I did not realize that.
I mean, it's like Pac-Man eating up the stock market. It's literally the size of the debt market globally, and even here in the United States, because we're always issuing new bonds, treasuries, whether it's the 28-day or the 1 month treasury,
Mm-hmm.
2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 30-year, the occasional 7-year that's mixed into that. Because I used to work on a bond desk for a large. And so on that bond desk, not only did I work in fixed income, or basically debt, corporate and government debt, but that's when I first started cutting my teeth working with really high net worth clients. So somebody call up and have $1 million, $2 million portfolios was pretty common. So I was working with these folks every day. And when they would buy, say, that 28-day treasury, they would buy them in like lots of 100, like you would a stock. So I'd be buying like $100,000, it's discounted, but you're up on the issue. But there's all kinds of debt that's out there. Walmart on occasion will have to put out a bond where they're raising money for something. Maybe they want to build a facility. Rates are incredibly low, so corporations are more likely to borrow money with interest rates as low as they are than to spend their own. Why would they spend their money when they can spend yours, right? So you're going to invest in it. And for the cost of that, if you hold that bond to maturity, they're going to pay you a certain amount of interest. And that's what people look for. And the better financially that company is, the more safe that bond is considered. So the safest bonds that are out there are usually considered U.S. Treasuries, the federal government printing up debt and selling that out. And you can buy those yourself. A lot of the biggest purchasers of those are usually pension plans.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they'll buy $30-50 million at a whack of these things and put them in their state pension plans for their state employees, and then rotate those bonds so that they have a bond portfolio that goes out for years. So that's another thing that you can do: buy debt and let somebody pay you.
That is so crazy. I've got to tell you, JC, I didn't know that. This comes down to a lack of education in our schooling and just lack of financial education for self. I didn't realize that connects the dots as to why it's long-term maturity. And interesting. Oh, okay. So keep going.
So they can borrow. So a company can borrow at very low rates right now. So when you buy that bond, and it may mature in 5 years, so they're going to keep that rate fairly low too, a little bit higher than what the zero you're getting now, but you may get 1.5 on a bond. And you think, well, okay, I'm holding that for 5 years, 1.5. That's higher than a 2-year treasury, obviously. Well, it was anyway, till recently. But so it's more than you're going to get on a CD at a bank. So people are like, yeah, I'll buy that and I'll hold that and take that in 5 years or whatever. However, just like a stock, people don't realize this. Like, bonds are safe. You can lose your butt in bonds, folks. You can lose money buying bonds. If you sell a bond before it matures, you're going to get just what the market value is of that. So it's just like stocks, supply and demand. If rates go lower, and that bond has a coupon rate that's at a certain amount that's more attractive, all of a sudden, more people want that bond. So you might make money off of that. But if rates go up and that bond is less attractive suddenly, because rates just raised, so now suddenly that bond is less attractive, and you think, well, it's a safe money, I can sell it and get my money back. Well, no, you can't. If you bought it at $1,000 per bond, so if you bought one bond, paid $1,000, well, now the market price might be $950. So you're going to lose $50. Well, so you can lose money in bonds if you sell them early. That's one reason Now, when I say fixed income, we talk about equities, you can buy individual companies, or you can buy mutual funds, which is a collection of stocks in one basket. Okay.
Right.
It's like going into a supermarket and like, I want some of this, I want some of that, and I want some of that. That's exactly what you're doing with a mutual fund with stocks. You can do the same thing with bonds and buy bond funds. And those will fluctuate up and down every day. Now, the difference is they tend to pay your interest on a monthly basis instead of like twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
But some bonds, if they pay on a monthly basis because the portfolio manager staggered those bonds out so that you get coupon payments every month. So it'd be a very small, so it's not like you're getting whatever the yield is each month. It's like a yearly basis and divide that by 12. Yeah, that's sort of what you're getting on a monthly basis. But you can lose money in bonds too. That's why when I look at fixed income for clients, I have for the longest time, I've had a preference of finding individual bonds and making sure you're comfortable holding that bond to maturity. So you know exactly what you're going to get, when you're going to get it. I know what your interest payments are going to be every quarter or semi-annually. And we know you're going to get the face value at return of the bond. You can buy a mutual fund and you can't guarantee you're going to get exactly what you put in back.
So I found a definition of bond fund, and I want to read it out. I was trying to copy and paste it into the chat so that it could just pop up. And tell me if this is accurate, because this is just off a website that I just searched a moment ago. A bond fund, also referred to as a debt fund, is a pooled investment vehicle that invests primarily in bonds, government, municipal, corporate, convertible, and other debt instruments such as mortgage-backed securities, MBS. The primary goal of a bond fund is often that of generating monthly income for investors. Both bond mutual funds and bond exchange trade funds, ETF, which we covered last week, are available to most investors. Interesting.
Yeah.
That definitely does shake hands with what you were just saying, correct?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find, and there are all kinds of different funds out there. You can buy a bond fund that's just in government securities, or you can find some that's a combination of a lot of different things. So if you wanted something that's more of a long-term or a short-term, you can break them down into that. So the shorter the term of the bond, the less volatility of that price, because it's coming due soon. So you kind of already know your conditions you're working with. The longer the term of the bond fund, then the more volatile that price of that fund is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to weigh your pros and cons on what you want there. So yeah, you can buy individual company debt, or you can buy a fund. And those funds, as you mentioned, all those different things that can be in there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of different things. So you might not. So when you think government debt, you can also buy government agency debt, like federal farm credit.
Wow.
So that's one that you can. But and also is that bond. I don't want to get too complicated, but is that bond guaranteed to? They're not going to pay it back until maturity, or if you buy it, is there a call date? In other words, they may call this back within 6 months, and then there you are looking for another rate to replace the one you just found.
Wow. So that kind of works like an expiration date?
Yeah. So they can say we'll guarantee you'll hold this for 6 months, but after 6 months we have the right to buy that back.
Okay.
So if you're an investor, it's like, well, I'm needing income and I need the security income for the next 5 years. I'm retired and this is why I'm buying it. And rates right now suck, but I like a particular bond at this rate. Well, if they call it back in 6 months, well, I'm back to square one. I've got to find another bond to replace that was paying the income that I needed. And am I going to find that rate in this market? So it's so it gets a little bit more complicated. But that's why you call me, right? Or somebody like me. And we can kind of help navigate and see what's available on the market. Because if you have a brokerage account in certain places, you can go look at these bonds. If you can't find what you look for, sometimes I can actually call a bond desk and say, all right, I need X, Y, and Z. We don't have it. Are there any other firms that are out there that may have something like this that you can go out and pick up for? Because I have a client that wants 50,000 of it. And then they can go look and then buy amongst themselves and then say, yeah, now we have it in our inventory and we can sell this for your client. We can give this to your client. So, so there's some options there. So the other type of asset class. It's just one that's losing right now, cash, because of inflation is just eating away at it. So you can have cash or cash equivalents, like a money market fund. And a money market fund will pay you a little bit of interest, based on what the rates are in the market. But at 7% interest or 7% inflation right now, you buy one at you get 0.5% on, then you're really losing 6.5% of your value. Just holding it cash. Times of inflation is not really when you want to hold cash.
Right.
Now there's some other things that people can invest in. And I think this was getting to her question too, because she's heard us talk about stocks and bonds. But there's other things that people can invest in, commodities and futures like oil and gold. Those are things that are out there. And you can find things that you can buy in your IRAs or whatever, general investing accounts that will track those prices, like some of the ETFs we mentioned last week. That can track some of these commodities. Another thing is alternative investments. Now, there's a little bit of a issue with holding alternative investments because you have to look at what the liquidity is. And when I say liquidity, you have an asset, you need to sell it. How quickly can you get cash for it? And that's what I mean by liquid. If you have a stock or a mutual fund, say you have a mutual fund, you want to get some money out, you can sell whatever dollar amount you want. $500, $1,000, whatever. We can sell that. That'll settle the next day. We can send cash to your bank account, right? We'll just wire it to you or mail you a check. Now, if you hold an alternative investment like real estate, how long does it take you to sell that real estate? How many hoops do you have to go through? Legal issues, zoning issues, selling that property, and then getting your money paid. Okay, a lot of things there. It takes a while to sell real estate. Same thing for like foreign exchange, like other currencies that you might want to invest in other currencies, because people, you don't think about it, but like we always buy everything in dollars. Well, other countries have currencies, like the European Union has the euro.
Right.
And I don't know what the exchange rate is right now, but say for every dollar, if you wanted to buy a euro, it might take you $1.18.
Okay. Right.
And then sometimes, based on their economy versus ours and the exchange rates, $1 might buy 85 cents worth of euros. Well, those are fluctuations determine whether people travel or not overseas, because you get more bang for your buck. People from Canada, for example, because the exchange rate, I happen to know a couple of folks in Canada that love to come down to Clearwater, Florida, and they used to do it every year. But for the last like 4 or 5 years, maybe a year or two before the pandemic, the exchange rate of the US dollar to the Canadian dollar was such that it was not economically feasible for them to come down, because it would cost 20% more. We think inflation's bad at 7%, 20% more for them to come down and visit Clearwater than it did the year before. And that's a big difference.
That is a big difference. And I actually have pulled up the currency exchange table. So I was going to share that to the screen because I'm so fascinated by exchange rates. And I have to say, I was able to travel. And travel is a huge one that is going to be able to give you a crash course on what exactly exchange rates are. And then you go, well, what? Like, why is the dollar so much stronger or so much weaker? And it's very, very interesting. So let's see if we can see this. It is a little bit small, but it's saying, so to the British pound, the US dollar is holding at 75 cents.
Yeah.
This is very, very, very interesting. I'm going to scroll through just a little bit. Canadian dollar. Ooh. So $1 US is, let's see here. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. Can you see this also, Cyrus? So it looks
very small on the screen.
Is that better? Oh, that makes it bigger. That's kind of, it didn't enlarge it on the broadcast. Okay. So it's saying US dollar 1.34. That's 1.26 for Canadian dollar. And then it is transferring over to 0.79. So I'm going to say that's got to be, would that be our dollar to $1.26? Help me read this.
Yeah.
I think this is a good educational tool.
So if it was like 7.79, So for every Canadian dollar that they convert to American dollars, they only get 79 cents.
Okay. That's what I thought I was reading. So we're actually holding a little bit stronger than the Canadian dollar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're actually probably one of the strongest currencies in the world right now. And keep in mind, as our Federal Reserve raises rates, that also tends to strengthen the dollar against other currencies. So that's something to keep in mind too. So our dollar will be, that's why it's the reserve currency of the world for now.
Right.
But another investment type of is collectibles, art, things like that. Diamonds. There's a lot of things you can invest in, other than just those normal asset classes you might see in a brokerage account. Some of these you can actually hold in brokerage accounts. And another thing to keep in mind as far as your investing is your own ethics. There's what's called sustainable, socially responsible investments. Sometimes you'll hear it called, so what is the acronym? SRI, sustainable, responsible, and impactful. So they look for things that companies that focus on like social benefit, environmental benefit, things like that. So, I mean, those generally are a little more expensive investments. Okay? If you find a mutual fund that's what you call socially responsible funds, those have higher expense ratios, and because of that, they tend to have lower average returns. Other companies that may have or other funds that may have tobacco or companies that produce things that are used in war, sin stocks, as you call them, alcohol, and tobacco, and firearms, right? They have the ATF stocks in there, but those tend to return a little better. But socially responsible is a little more. As much as we all love to do it, it's a little more expensive. And but if that's the way you want to invest and that's what you're comfortable in, you can find those types of mutual funds that'll help you invest and kind of have a clear conscience. You're not going to make as much in return, and you're going to pay a little bit more in expense ratio, but they're there.
I was looking at the diamond market because I had heard about the sanctions against Russia, that we were not going to be purchasing, importing Russian diamonds. And so, you make a statement like that and it's like, okay, well, how much do we really get from Russia? And I was pulling up some research here just a moment ago. It says that last year in 2021, there were 32.4 million carats mined in the region of Russia. And so I guess you put that together and potentially, could the diamond market seriously climb in value just from that one sanction?
You have lack of it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
Supply and the same demand that'll run the price up unless you find another source. But it's kind of like the oil thing, though. Just because we're not buying the oil, it doesn't mean another country is not buying the oil and converting currencies somehow, even not using dollars, and they're getting that oil on the world market anyway. So, I mean, are they selling? Are they going to go to China with those? Because China's trying to be an ally with them now. Are they going to sell those diamonds to China? China sells them to Pakistan, who sells them to Saudi Arabia, who turns around and sells them in the U.S. market. How do you track all that? After a while, it's a little tough. So keeping supply, it's a lot tougher to keep supply out of the world than people think. So that's, and I don't know if you remember from the 80s, remember the phrase blood diamonds?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
And a lot of people didn't know that they were buying things that were under such harsh conditions to mine those.
Yeah.
And but yet those still, even for like a decade, people were screaming about it. It seemed like it fell on deaf ears until, and I hate to say it, but until the moms in America heard about it. And just like same thing with the school board things, when kids were at home homeschooling, moms saw every problem that the public school system had. They showed up at the school board meetings, and now we're seeing some changes, and we will see over the next few years, I think. But until like the Until the moms and the the ladies of America see problems like that with the diamonds, nothing really changed.
Exactly. And I do find it a little frustrating that we're dealing with two large entities, Russia and China, in my opinion. They're both communist countries. So they're not really going to be connected with the rest of the world. They're not really going to disclose everything that's going on. You look at Russia right now. So right away, their connectivity was cut. We have not seen any videos of exactly what's going on in Russia with the Russian people because of their leader and his objectives at the moment. There is, in my opinion, massive suffering that we are not seeing. And it's disgraceful, in my opinion. Of course, I am a child of democracy. I have been privileged enough to be raised and live in the United States. So we have a different opinion. We go about life a different way. In my opinion, more humanity is a word that I'm trying to play with here, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And same thing with China. We are hearing about what the Uyghurs are going through. We're hearing how it's brutal and it's a horrible existence, but we can't see it.
Exactly. Yeah, they control that pretty tough. And likewise, the Russian people are being fed a lot of misinformation because they don't see a baby hospital being bombed in Ukraine on purpose. They don't see people that are holed up in a theater trying to survive getting bombed and civilians getting shelled. They don't see all this stuff. They're told that they're trying to liberate the Ukrainians because there's a rise of Nazism in Ukraine. And it's tough to break that firewall and get our message over to the Russian people because they're automatically going to think, hey, well, that's just American propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't see the realities. They will start seeing the realities when more body bags go home. There's already been, I heard on the news just last night, there's been 7,000 Russian soldiers that have been killed in this. No, you wait till those parents see their sons coming home, in body bags. And at some point, those people who are brave enough to protest, knowing that they're going to go to jail, in the last 2 weeks, I think Vladimir Putin has rounded up 15,000 people and branded them as traitors and put them in prison. There's no trial. They don't have a fair trial. They don't have a system that we have, as flawed as ours may be. And we all complain about things, and we should, to make it better. But it's still the best in the world.
Right.
They don't have these things. And you're right. We don't see what's coming out of China. But one thing about China, I will point out, as far as that's like a part of the world, like I don't mind investing in like mutual funds that have like an Asian aspect to it. But China is one place there are some stocks that are on our exchange that you can buy that are Chinese companies. I do not touch them. One, because, well, how much of it can you trust? All right. I'm not like trying to say they're not trustworthy. These people, these companies may have great intentions, but at some point we've seen over the last few months, China coming in and cracking down on their high-tech sector. Alibaba was the version of Amazon. And that guy was, Jack Ma was the guy who started it and owned it. He was one of the wealthiest people in the world. They cracked down on that so hard that stock has been beaten down. It's a fraction of what it was.
And you just don't even hear about that anymore. That was all over everywhere.
Yeah, education stocks, things that kids could learn outside of school, those were crushed. I don't know if it's because they want to control the education so hard. Probably. And technology companies that they thought they didn't want people getting too far out of the control of, because with a lot of wealth comes a lot of power.
Sure.
And again, that's the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
They don't want that internal strife. They have enough problems internally as it is. When that company defaulted, the big, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it was a real estate company. When it defaulted, that reminded me of what happened back in 2008 and 2009 here, with a lot, because that company was probably one of the top 2 or 3 largest real estate companies in the world. All right. So, I mean, when it fell and they didn't backstop it, that told me, wow, their real estate market probably just crashed 50%. and they're not giving people the proper numbers to know about it.
Is it Evergrande?
Evergrande, that's the name of it.
Okay.
So when I saw that, I'm like, okay. Usually when they give you GDP numbers, for years people just assume they've inflated them. They're not growing at 15% a year, 10% a year. And they peg their currency, so they do currency manipulation as it is. And they've always done that.
You know, I'm researching that right now while we're talking about Evergrande. So the $3 billion debt, geez, a Chinese real estate company could default on a $3 billion debt. And that was reported, multiple different sources here in front of me. And it says, that they declared in default by a credit rating firm after missing a crucial interest payment, December 9th, 2021. And that was the BBC.com.
And that was just one payment, Elizabeth.
Jeez.
So there's a chain reaction that's gone along with that. Just like it would, like I assume it would happen there, like it sort of does in our country.
Mm-hmm.
And if China is saying, okay, we're going to have a 5.25% GDP this year, that's what they're saying they're going to grow at this year. No, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
I would knock 3% off of that, just off Evergrande.
Wow.
If it was even accurate to begin with.
Yeah, that's true. That's the other side of it, is the reporting side of it. They just don't have to report what is customary, what is standard, what is transparent from.
Yeah, they're the least transparent government in the world.
Right. And same thing with the transparency with Russia. We were talking just a moment ago about the Russian soldiers going back home in body bags. So you are absolutely correct. They're saying at least 7,000 Russian troops have been killed, with another 14 to 21,000 injured in less than a month.
If they stay, how long were we in Vietnam?
Oh gosh, let me look that up. I don't remember. That was years.
Yeah. And at that pace, they're going to hit Vietnam numbers in a year.
Jeez, I'm looking that up right now because I'm so curious. 10 years.
Yeah.
It lasted 10 years.
It was like 58,000. All right, something like that. Now, you can't hide that number from moms and dads when their kids come home.
No.
I don't care what you put on the news, they're going to realize, oh, that's a lie.
Right.
But after the Cold War, a lot of people realized how much propaganda that crap was anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to wonder how much they believe it now. Vladimir Putin just gave a very Stalin-like speech yesterday and filled the stadium, like 15,000 people. And I'm thinking, wow, that's the exact number of people he had arrested and imprisoned already.
Yeah.
A stadium full of people because they didn't agree with him. It's a crazy world, but it's always been a crazy world. And you know what? Time will go on. Things will go on. And, times they will get better.
I absolutely agree with your sentiment there. It will get better, and that's exactly why they need to get started with you. We all need to get started with you, because this is a great time to buy. Everything's on sale. And, I have been struggling to be able to put some money into getting started as well. And it's like, I've got it sitting there. I'm like, okay, I've got to go over to, the company to where I can put, and all this kind of stuff. But I'm like, it's okay. Everything is still on sale. So this is a great time to get started. Can you give us just a little bit of information here as to why is that great for somebody that might be watching this going, what in the world is she talking about? Everything's on sale.
Well, everything's up. Like if you like a company, let's say you got to buy some shoes, you love a pair of shoes, it's $120. And that's normally what the price is. But now they're going to have a clearance sale. And you go in and those shoes you've been wanting for the last month are now selling at $80. Well, you might buy two pair, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way you got to look at good companies. Now, again, like I said earlier, this is not the time to buy companies that don't have a good revenue stream or profit margin. You buy good, solid companies that you're going to hold for a while. So you could invest tomorrow, Monday, buy in and see your value down by the end of the week. Who knows where the market's going to go? We don't invest for a week. We don't invest for a month. We don't invest for a year. Long term. That's what you have to be consider, because every time the market takes a dip, it's a good time to buy. Now, that's what we mean by on sale. Now, I know it sucks. Like even client value, I'm not going to hide from you. Even client values from a month ago with 5 straight weeks of the Dow going down. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you people's values under my tutelage went up. Everything went down.
Right.
But that's why you keep cash on hand available. And, everybody else's inclination will be like, oh, I'm getting out. Well, you don't make money buying high and selling low. Right. You don't buy a house at 180,000 and turn around and sell it for 160. You're going to lose. Same thing with stocks. You don't lose until you sell. And people need to understand that. It's a long-term investment. It's a long-term plan. Be comfortable with it. Expect some ups and downs. That's why you would put money with someone like me. I worry about it for you. You go live your life. Enjoy your day. Like there's better things to worry about than looking at a statement or going to look online every night. What's my value? That's just, it'll drive you nuts. It really will.
Yeah.
So during this time, as things have gone down, yeah, I've went in and bought a little bit at a time. Not going all in. This is not Vegas, but I may, put a little bit at a time and, over the 2 or 3 weeks and buy at a lower and lower prices to give my average price lower. So the long term, I have more shares, and when the market takes off, then that's great. That's exactly what you want it to do. I will mention one thing, that that market sentiment, consumer sentiment number I mentioned at the beginning. Now that doesn't always mean that, like I said, that people are going to stop spending money. Typically, now not always, but typically, when you kind of have a trough in that number, a low number that stays as a trough, and then you see it coming out, stocks rebound really nicely coming out of those types of things based on that chart. Now, does it always happen? No. And I don't always expect it to happen. But the best thing you can do is find good investments, good companies, and be willing to hold them. And over time, you're going to make money. Just know that when times are tough, that you have somebody that's watching your money and making good decisions with it. That's
absolutely. You must take a lot of counseling calls too. I'm saying, no, it's okay. Just calm down, stay the course. It's okay.
Well, one thing I do, and I don't know if they have, some people, I'm sure people have money invested in other places. When days are like that, and I have like a list of prospective people that I've talked to, I might call them and ask them how their money's doing when the market's down 900 points. And the reason I do that is I talk to them about, hey, it's got to be comfortable. You got to understand what your strategy is. And is there something you don't understand about your portfolio? I can answer for you. Because I guarantee you on a 900 point down day, their advisor is not calling them.
No.
But I want to, and I do that with my clients. I'll call them. If the market was down Friday or whatever really bad, I might just randomly call some people Monday and say, hey, just want you to know, do you have any questions? We're still running our strategies. Things look good. How are you, how are you doing? Let's talk.
That's ballsy. That's, you've got to have some people that kind of don't really want to talk to you, even though it's not your fault, but well, that's a great strategy though. I really do appreciate in what you're saying there in calling a client on a down day.
Yeah.
Because, everything that we're talking about for the past couple of weeks that we've been doing the segment on the news, it definitely seems like staying the course, consistency, patience, it's all going to play out in a positive financial fashion.
Yeah. And it's not an easy call to make. It's a tough call to make. But, if I'm going to appreciate somebody's business when the market is up 20%, I damn well want to appreciate their business when it's down.
Right.
Even more. Because, the way I feed my fee structure, if their value is down, I make less. I mean, I have a vested interest to make sure they go up. So I just want to remind them, hey, we appreciate, and we're still working the strategy. I'm not worried about what we bought. We bought good things. So I'm here to worry so you don't have to.
I love that. So with all the education that you've done here with us, and I truly appreciate you, and I hope that we can continue this and continue doing new segments on Saturdays, because I absolutely enjoy it. You're educating me so much, so it's a little self-serving because it's free education. But I've heard that you're starting to create some videos for educating on the financial knowledge and creating a base, like you said, a foundation. The foundation definitely starts with knowledge. So are you creating those videos, and where can we find them?
Well, I've put a few on our Facebook page, but they're going to stay on the social media page. So I'll use Zoom and just record 3 or 4 minutes and like just talking about maybe volatility or something. And I put a handful of those up. It's if you look for Vista, Facebook.com/Vista Front Partners Inc. I think is what it is, or Vista Front Partners, one of the two. But I'm thinking about actually what I do want to do is maybe do a little weekly 3 to 5 minutes, because people's attention span. I want them something short, succinct, and like just a quick little investing 101.
Sure.
Things that maybe come up, or something that may be pertinent to, like, say, teachers that are retiring. And depending on what state you're in, they get this thing toward the end of their retirement. When they declare their retirement, they're still working. They may get what's called a plop, which is like a big chunk payment that they can put down to invest alongside of their other retirement. So I may talk about some just various things like that. Just, if I've had a couple of school teachers I've talked to during the week, I may talk about something that school teachers have been bringing to my attention, and just keep them short and sweet. So I invite anybody just to follow that page, and I put some interesting links up from time to time. We don't do a ton on it, but my email address is there. So if there's a topic you'd like me to address, just drop me an email.
Sure. I'm looking at it right now, and you were correct. It's Vista Front Partners Inc. So VISTAFRONT is one word, partnersinc.com. And you do have your phone number listed here. Send us a message, your email, everything is here. And that is on Facebook, to where we can find those educational videos coming. You've already produced several of them, but even more coming very soon.
Yeah, and since we run our clients through Charles Schwab, they sometimes have a weekly minute or whatever, and then I'll, like the one video you just scroll past, the bald guy. So I'll put him, or Liz Ann Saunders, who's a really who I listen to a lot too through Schwab. She's one of their lead analysts there. So she has a lot of she's a little bit more in depth in her videos, but so we put those up and interesting articles, and then but I wanted to do maybe something once a week, just a little investing 101 for people.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, man. I have taken a lot of your time this morning, but you've really fed us just like you do every single Saturday. And I hope to see you maybe next Saturday.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
All right, let's do it. Well, thank you, JC. Have a great day. And again, it's JC@VistaFrontPartners.com. Ask your questions, leave your comments. If you would like us to maybe cover a topic, or he can create a educational video on Facebook under Vista Front Partners Inc. Go follow, like, give it all that love, and share it out.
Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate your time again, Elizabeth. And thanks again for it's tough following up some of your guests you've already had this morning. Hope the rest of the shows go great. Everybody else, have a great weekend. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Yes, same to you. And I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too. All right, everybody. I love our discussions because he really does fill in so many answers to so many questions that we have in the world of investing, and what should we do? What shouldn't we do? So make sure that you check out Vista Front Partners. Now, moving into the news, I actually have a submission from a friend of mine, and I want to make sure that I'm sharing my screen because he has been a huge mentor to me in creating myself as a sketch comedian artist, and he is just absolutely fabulous. So he is also a, I call people that love the theater babies, because we just thrive on stage. And this is Coach Wes Lee, and Coach Wes Lee is in a new production. Let me bring it up here solo to the screen. Let's take a look. It is called Coach Wes Lee Transparency. It is what it is. So let's take a look at It Is What It Is. And he sent me some messages here that I'm going to read to you. So this is April 15th, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Windmill Arts Center. And this is in East Point, Georgia. So if you happen to be nearby, you can go over to the .com, which is TWOIDLEMINDS.com. And you can get your tickets today. But let me tell you a little bit more about the project because he sent me a bunch of information I want to spend some time on here. So the bio reads, Atlanta's well-known and beloved life coach, mentor, vocalist, dancer, and motivational speaker, Coach Wes Lee is kicking off Easter weekend with the official premiere of his one-man show, Transparency. I just got chills. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Wes. Coach Wes blends the musical magic of Broadway with the life-changing impact of TED Talks into an inspiring presentation that promises to leave a lasting imprint on your life. This collision of Broadway and TED Talks features mesmerizing new characters, amazing vocal renditions of your favorite songs, electrifying dance moves, and a motivational message that will uplift your spirit. On this journey, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll cheer, but most importantly, you will be inspired to be the best version of yourself. Let's enjoy the experience together on April 15th and April 16th, 2022. All roads lead to the Windmill Arts Center, that is 2823 Church Street in East Point, Georgia. So make sure that you get your tickets immediately because Transparency is not going to be unsold out. This show is going to be huge, absolutely sold out, and I am so elated to hear what a wonderful project my coach Wes Lee, a wonderful, beautiful human being, is working on. So congratulations to you, Coach. Now, we have another congratulations in the stream this morning. This is Mr. and Mrs. Justin Peters. This is Elizabeth and Justin Peters, and they are celebrating their 34th wedding anniversary. And I'm checking my notes just to make sure that I am correct, but I believe from memory, 34 years. And if I've given you 2 extra years, Justin, it's all right. But happy anniversary. Look at the beautiful couple. You look just as beautiful, just as refreshed and alive as you do in your wedding photos. Happy anniversary to you. Now, I love celebrating birthdays, and I have so many babies in my house that I have been so very blessed to be able to celebrate so many birthdays. So coming to the stream, who is the birthday boy of today? Well, Mr. Kevin B. Ploth, and I'm going to make sure I'm playing my birthday music here. Happy birthday in New York City, Mr. Kevin B. Ploth. And again, today's birthday, Mr. Rob Munford. Rob, I hope you're having a fantastic day. And beautiful actress Susan D'Angelo celebrated her birthday yesterday. Happy belated birthday to you. And we also have tomorrow's birthday. That one's Monday's. No. All right, and then we have Nana, our Nana. It is her birthday today, tomorrow. Too much bed rest, guys. It is her birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday to you. And on Monday, it is my daughter's birthday, our Nina. Happy birthday to you. And I'm going to go through there one more time just because I messed it up.
I wish you the happiest of birthdays, and I hope that all your dreams come true. I wish you the grandest of all days, and I pray that the sun will shine on you. May you smile every second and remember always, I wish you the happiest of birthdays. The happiest of birthdays.
Happy birthday. I hope that you have a wonderful yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Monday. Those were our birthdays of yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Monday. All right, everybody. So we do have a few stories, very uplifting, informational, educational, great stories in the news cycle. And so let's go ahead and go over them. The first one in the news cycle is actually really interesting, and it is energy based. There's an Australian company, and this is the picture I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to explain the picture in just a moment. So Hyasta's electrolyzer breaks efficiency records, enabling world-beating green hydrogen cost. And this is sourced from goodnews.com. So thank you so much for sourcing it, and absolutely going to give you recognition for the source. But let's talk a little bit more about what exactly this is. Hyasta's world-leading hydrogen electrolyzer technology has been recognized on the global stage with groundbreaking research. Well, what does all this mean, right? So green hydrogen is vital for decarbonization of hard-to-abate sectors like steel, heavy transport, and chemicals. The Energy Transitions Commission expects demand for green hydrogen to grow to 500 to 800 million tons by 2050 to meet demand in these sectors, creating a new multi-trillion-dollar industry. And it's just a phenomenal article. I really, really suggest that you go to goodnews.com and read a little bit more. You can actually, of course, go to hyasta.com's website. They are an Australian-based company. It is spelled HYSATA.com, and you can learn more. But let's take a little bit of a closer look here. All right. And so this is showing how the cell works. They have quoted, the global momentum towards net zero is creating a massive opportunity for green hydrogen and electrolyzers. Economics will ultimately determine which technologies win. And with our world-beating efficiency, Hyasta is well placed to lead in this major new global market. Our electrolyzer will deliver the world's lowest hydrogen cost, save hydrogen producers billions of dollars in electricity costs, and enable green hydrogen to outcompete fossil fuel driven hydrogen. How interesting is that? I'm absolutely engaged in that conversation there. Okay, so let's get to our heartwarming story, and then we actually have an interactive story here. So the heartwarming story touches back to Ukraine, and I love what so many of the people across the borders in Poland, in Hungary, what they have done for refugees. And I have a picture here. So this picture we're going to see, these are all the donations. Mothers and families have gotten together and they've driven donations directly to the border. And this is where the story begins. Obviously, this picture was sourced from GMA, which was also put onto another website, and I've put it onto mine. So empty strollers have been showing up on the Polish rail border crossing, which has inspired a mountain of donations for Ukrainian refugees. Thank God, right? Now, at the Przemysl station, I believe I said that correctly, women, children, and infants fleeing the war are being greeted by mountains of clothes, stuffed animals, strollers, diapers, and more after they step off the train. There are many spared children's items from Polish mothers that have been passed on for good use in a time of great crisis. Among the items, really, many donators have handwritten notes attached. Oh my gosh, that is, handwritten notes attached to them with words of support. We see on television and hear on radio what happened, and we say, okay, we can help. One Polish mother told a volunteer working for ABC News. It got back to the reporter in Poland who was on location from ABC News. That is an amazing story. Now, we've had so many trying times thus far, and I've got to go for a journey with you guys because I found this next news report, and it's called Pep Talk. It's a Pep Talk hotline. All right, so we've heard the concept of hotlines before, right? Where you can call, you can get help with all types of things, may it be a sobriety struggle, mental health struggle, whatever you may be going through. This is actually created by children. Little kids give you a pep talk on a recorded phone hotline and they're adorable, the article reads. It's sometimes said that wisdom also often comes from the mouths of babes, but what it doesn't mention is that you have to dial 1 first. A new telephone hotline is relieving stress and uplifting callers with laughter, words of encouragement, and advice from elementary school students, and it's ring off the hook. The Pep Talk Hotline was the brainchild of a local art teacher. Her name is Jessica Martin, who figured she would create some, smiles in the California area that they're in. But shortly after launching, it exploded into life, regularly receiving 300 to 400 calls per hour. So this was actually released this week, and I want to try to call it and see where we get. The phone number is 707 998 8410. And let's see what we get.
Hi, welcome to Pep Talk, a public art project by Westside School. Bienvenidos a Pep Talk, un proyecto creado por los estudiantes de Westside School.
Para un mensaje feliz, presiona 5.
Please listen to the following options for encouraging messages. If you're feeling mad, frustrated, or nervous, press 1. If you need words of encouragement and life advice, press 2. If you need a pep talk from kindergartners, press 3.
3.
If you need to hear kids laughing with delight, press 4. For encouragement in Spanish, press 5.
Oh, let's do 3.
You can do it! Keep trying! Don't give up! If you're feeling mad, frustrated, or nervous, press 1.
Let's try it.
If you need it, when you're feeling mad, you should take 3 deep breaths and think of things that make you happy. The thing that makes me happy is when, and I think of happy things that will happen in the future, like going to a friend's house or a cousin's house. Bye. If you're frustrated, just take 5 minutes off.
How awesome is that? So that is Pep Talk, the elementary school art teacher's passion project. She's recorded all these children's voices, and you can call in for a pep talk at 707-998-8410. That is awesome. Congratulations out there in California to the elementary school students that are a part of that. And that is an amazing story. Well, everybody, I've had such a great time on the news with you. Happy birthday. Happy anniversary. Congratulations on the new projects. Wonderful stories. And thank you for the financial education with J.C. Schweingrouber of Vista Front Partners. It's been a great journey of an hour and a half's time. Thank you so much for watching. And we will be back next